Camera's rolling. I do want to show my shirt on this podcast, right? So I'm gonna lift up my shirt so you can see it right there.
That's a
And
bad
that's like
shirt.
that's the two different personalities right here. That was us, growing up, right? Am I wrong or what?
Yeah, that's it's funny because the first thought that comes to my mind is when we went to that family reunion, and there was a football game that was
how
happening.
how old were we? Let's start there. How old were we at the time? Like 21, 22? How old
Yeah,
were we?
we were men.
Yes.
We were men. We were probably both in college, or maybe you were out of college and I was in. But I remember vividly um, you trying to destroy our other family members.
Right.
you
Here's
know,
what I remember. They were like, "Oh, let's play football," and then we're in my mind we're ringers. Both of us are ringers. We're both killers, right? So they're playing football, and then I was gonna take it light, and then they said something like, "Oh, you go with the old guys," or something like that. Like you guys go with the old guys,
us.
and they put us on a team where they thought that we were going to lose or something like that. That's what I remember. That's what triggered me. I was like, "Oh, you are greatly underestimating both of us. We will kill you. Everybody on this field, you will all lose. You'll die."
Yeah, and that's I remember. I don't remember feeling that way. I just remember being on your team, like, oh, it's over, it's a wrap. And I remember thinking to myself, all right, as I always do, like I'm gonna take it easy on whoever we're playing, just because unless there's a reason to step it up.
Yeah.
And I just really remember you just going to town, like running over people, and like I'm like, damn.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
so bringing it back to that picture, like, yeah, you trying to choke the cat or looking like you wanted to choke the cat,
yeah,
and me walking, just holding the cat, like, it reminds me
yeah,
of family reunion.
yeah. And I think that we grew up in the same household. For the listeners, this is my brother Vince, right? He's an educator as well. Um, and I brought him on the podcast because we're here talking about how we grew up. But growing up though, growing up in the same household with the same parents, raised the same way. Growing up, we had two different personalities. We were two different people, totally. You
Yeah.
know, and I don't know what it was, but I was more aggressive. I was more angry. I didn't like to follow some of the rules. I was manipulative. I like to control situations, and you were more kind and loving and caring, and you looked out for people, and that's how it was growing up.
Yeah, and I almost take offense to you saying you're more aggressive, to be honest. Because,
I love it.
you know, or maybe, no, I mean, that's probably facts, when we're younger. And maybe even now, like, it's funny because
Well, now I'm not. I don't think I'm aggressive now, but
you don't think you're aggressive now at all.
not as aggressive as I was when I
Yeah.
was young. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, so then the roles probably have reversed then, because I feel like I'm definitely a little bit more aggressive now.
Yeah.
But I still go into situations like, feeling like, okay, let me take it easy. Like, like we play basketball on Fridays right now, some of the teachers at my school. And I'm always like thinking about the other person I'm playing against. And unless the other person goes hard on me, I'm gonna just kind of like, all right, we're having fun.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I've always been. And I feel like you've always been like, no, I'm gonna punch this dude right in the mouth before. I'm gonna let him know. Like, I'm
Right out
hitting
the
him
gate.
hard.
Whenever we play sports, man, because that's all we did, right? We growing up, all we did was it was just like training. I felt like we were just in battle after battle after battle. Growing up, we played football. It was a battle. Our wrestling matches, our boxing matches in the front yard. Our boxing matches when we went to go visit other people
Yeah.
and box them. right? Or in the alley playing whatever sport, it was going to the park, and playing basketball. It was always a battle. And then bringing it back to the house. Bringing it back to the house when me and you it was just like battle after battle. It was like iron sharpening iron every freaking day. Just like it was just like constant. It was just nonstop, and that's how it was growing up. And you know, without you, I feel like I wouldn't be as strong or as good as I was. I felt like because you were always there, like this close to me, like I'm gonna take you one day, like this close. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh no, I can't let him. And it was just like we are always just sharpening each other, whether it was, I don't know if it was intended, but that's just what happened. You were one of the strongest guys in the neighborhood, I felt.
yeah. It never felt like I was close. I, I never felt like I was on your tail. I always felt like I was chasing, and you were far off in the distance. But I don't even think I ever really wanted to catch you, to be quite honest. You know,
Hmm.
um, I'm pretty sure most of the guys that we grew up with would admit that you probably were the toughest dude on the block. There was a couple of dogs. You definitely were one of the big dogs. There might have been like Jose, nickname Crazy. He was a dog. He was
Yeah,
he
yeah,
definitely had some crazy strength, and I think you two were probably the top two, but Jose was
yeah.
kind of a little bit further off in the neighborhood. So I really was never really trying to catch you, but I do agree that man, us wrestling in the bedroom and like just going at it, with each other, every day, whether it be wrestling, football, whatever it was, the little sidewalk with the little slit of grass that we would play tackle football on. And, I mean, we had a pretty amazing childhood, and we were lucky, we were blessed to have each other, so we can, definitely, we're to, I was younger, a little younger, and I felt like most of the kids were your age or a little older,
Hmm.
but I definitely could hold my own. And having you there was, you know, man, I'm tough as nails now, and I definitely attribute that to having a bigger brother.
You are tough as nails. Back to Crazy though, like that whole, he had ridiculous strength. Jose had ridiculous strength, and that I was I was always afraid. Just it was in the back of my mind, like this dude might whoop my ass. Like this guy could whoop my ass. Like if anybody in this neighborhood do it, it's gonna be him. And he was definitely, he had a few screws loose. That's why his name was Crazy, right? And so we always never wanted to wrestle each other. We always never wanted to fight each other because in the back of his mind, he knew like, well, damn, I might lose, and then I might lose clout as well. And then that one, I think you were there. That one boxing match we had in the front yard. It
That
was
was so
like,
crazy. The crazy part about that match, before you even say anything about it, is that there was only one witness,
it was
and
you,
it was,
right?
and I think that goes to say like neither of you guys wanted it to go down in front of anybody.
Nah.
And it was like, all right, cool, this is the perfect opportunity. It's just Vince, and the two top dogs, and we're gonna see who's who.
Right. And we decided, we agreed, and we put on them gloves. And you're right. No, there was no witnesses, just you. And
That's crazy.
I have more skill than him, right? I have more skill than him, and I felt like I was tagging him up, like ha ha. I felt like I was winning the fight, and then out of nowhere, he hits me with a haymaker, and I don't know, maybe we're like 12 or 13. Hits me with a haymaker, and my knees buckle. It's the first time my knees had ever buckled, like blah, and my knees get buckled, and I was like, oh, and I get myself back together, and I think that we continue, but then after that, it was like a mutual agreement, like, all right, respect,
Yeah.
we'll stop here. And it was like a hell of a match. I wish that was recorded. I wish we had some sort of, we could go back and look at it, but that was a crazy match.
Yeah. And I think as your little brother, I was a little scared. I was like, damn, is my brother gonna get beat up today? Like,
Yeah, yeah. That was in the back of my mind. Like I might lose today. This might be the day that I'm gonna lose right here. But I remember when Like when we were at Silver Lake Park and you fought Steve with the boxing gloves, and you were just way too quick for him. Like you were just way too quick for him. Just lighting him up. Just lighting him up. You were so fast. I was like, damn, this guy's quick. Like, do you
That
remember
was
that?
yeah, that was a little also intimidating because Steve was older than me.
Yeah.
I think Steve was older than you.
We were in the same grade, but he might have been older than me.
You were young for your grade
I was. I was
because
about
you
a
were
yeah. You're right.
October.
Yeah.
So Steve might have been 2 years older than me. How old are you?
Yeah.
How much? You're a year and a half older than
A
me.
year and a half. So you're right. He might have been 2 years older.
Yeah, 2 years, man. When you're young, whether it was 13, 15, 14, 16, or whatever.
It's
Like
a big deal.
I remember, like, okay, I might be in over my head on this one, but my speed was definitely a factor, and I think we stopped it short. I think it was like I tagged him a few times, and I
Yeah.
think we might have went like one round, and then everybody's like, all right, Vince, like,
I think everybody felt the tension. Like
yeah,
everybody had to draw a line. Like I
yes,
think Eddie was there. I think
yeah,
there's people that had to draw a line there. Like if it got out of hand where they threw the boxing gloves, it was like, all right, it's a fight. Now we're gonna have to everybody's gonna have to draw a line and choose a side,
yeah,
and then and then we're gonna not be friends anymore. So let's just not go there and let's just stop it
yeah,
right there. I think
yeah,
that because you were embarrassing them.
yeah. No, for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah,
That was good times, man. We had a lot of like little fights, real fights, fake fights. Josh was another guy that comes to mind. He was older than us for sure. I don't know by
yeah.
how much though. I don't know if it was like older than you by a
He was
year.
older than me by maybe like 3 years old, maybe like 2 years. Wait, hold on, like a year. He was like about a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah, so he might have been 3 years older than
three
me.
years older than you.
And I remember we were walking down the street, the back street of Silver Lake. Like if we were gonna go to the park, there's two ways you could go around that little like that club. I forgot the name
Yeah,
of that club, whatever that club was.
yeah,
And I can't remember what it was that he was saying to me or whatever. He would always pick on me. He was the
yeah. He
older
would.
kid or whatever.
He's an older guy.
You know, and I remember we got into it, and I don't know how or why or what possessed me to do it, but I pulled his shirt over his head like a hockey move.
Yep.
And I didn't like tag him up or anything like that, but it was just like, oh, Vince would have got you, and we kind of ended at that. But there was always something going on in the neighborhood, man, with somebody either fighting
Yeah,
or wrestling, or it
I
was
remember that 7-Eleven. You got into a fight with a kid right there.
oh man, I lost that fight. I
No,
think I
no, you didn't.
I felt
No,
like I
because
lost that
I
fight.
know you did it because I remember I jumped in and kind of rolled him around or whatever.
That's
But
why I felt like I lost because you jumped in. I don't
well,
even. That was a random kid too, because I don't even remember his
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Do you remember his
I,
name?
I don't remember his name either, and I don't. He might have been like he lived up in the
Up
hills
in the
somewhere,
hills. Yeah,
and he would come down to 7-Eleven, play Street Fighter or whatever. Like we would play the video games. He would be there. Like we'd all hang out at 7-Eleven, and sometimes he'd show up. But I remember he was acting stupid. Like he was just acting stupid, and maybe it was like numerous times, and I think you were fed up with it or something like that.
I
And
remember him catching me off guard, like he cheap shot at me, and I ended up falling back and hitting my head or something.
and
And
then
I think
that's when
that's
I
why
came
he
in.
jumped in. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
definitely lost that fight. I mean, I don't even know. It probably wasn't even a fight. I think I
no,
got cheap shotted.
yeah, and then
Forgot
yeah,
about that, man, because for 20 something years I've been saying I've been undefeated in a street fight. I might have that might have been my only loss.
but that was our childhood was just constant our running man game,
That
our
was
running man game.
that was
That
awesome.
was crazy, right? Like so we're in the neighborhood, and for those that don't know what Running Man is, it's from the movie Running Man, where there's you send somebody out, whatever. The movie was you send somebody out and then you track them down and you capture them, and in the movie they get killed, right? Something like that. In our
Yeah.
version, it's the same idea, but you send out a team, and you try to get that team to submit somehow, and it's usually through physical punishment. Like, it's usually through like some sort of fight.
Usually the team you sent out was undermanned but powerful. So like
Yeah.
it might have been the like 6 guys chasing 2 guys, or like 8 guys chasing 3 guys,
Yeah.
and there were 3 tough guys
Yeah.
to kind of make it fair.
Yeah.
And then we would just beat each other up, or
Until you gave up. Until you said, all right, I submit, I give up, whatever. And we loved that game, man. That's a game that we played all the time, man. We loved it. Um, playing guns, playing guns back there. We had our guns, our little fake guns, and we're like, boom, I shot you. All right, you said it first.
I
You
shot
said,
you first.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, that was,
I remember hiding on the roof of one of the neighbors' houses playing guns, and I get shot, and whatever, I die, whatever, I submit. Okay, so I'm coming down the roof, and I end up falling from the rooftop onto
yeah,
my back, and
yeah,
I think spraining my wrist or something. I felt pretty bad.
yeah,
And as kids, I remember, I don't know why, but at least for me, I never wanted to go home and tell our parents that I got hurt. So
yeah.
I think I rocked the sprained wrist for like a month until it got better or something. We didn't go to the doctors. It wasn't like, hey, let's go get this checked out. It was like,
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna tell my parents.
And yeah, and that's something we never told. We never spoke about being hurt. Like that was something we never did. I remember this clearly. Audius, his bikes were in his garage, and there was a beehive up there, and nobody wanted to get the. We wanted to ride the bikes, but nobody wanted to open the lock because of the beehive. And I was like, "Give me the key. I'll do it. Give me the key." So I get the key. I unlock it. I get stung 3 times in my back, like bam, bam, bam. And then I open the garage. I'm like, here's your key. I'll be back. The minute I walk this way, I start to cry where nobody can see me. Nobody can see me. I walk this way. I'm like, damn, I got stung, 3 times. And I walk this way and I'm just walking back all cool, but I'm crying silently. And I go straight to our house, up to our room, lay in bed, and I'm just crying. I don't tell anybody. I don't tell mom or dad, like, hey, I got stung. I
Yeah,
just like I got it happened. And I
yeah.
just took it. And that's what it was, you know?
I remember hanging out to our neighbor's car, and all of us with a skateboard or a bike or whatever it was, and he would drive down the alley, which was like almost like 200 yards or whatever it was. I don't know, maybe even 300 yards.
That was 300 yards probably.
And I remember holding on one day. I didn't have a skateboard or nothing. I just jumped on the back and I held on to like the hood, and I was standing on the bumper, and you were like on your skateboard or bike holding on, and like he's pulling you, and another friend was holding on with his skateboard or bike. And I remember you guys like right around the 100 yard mark let go,
let go.
and I was the only one on the hood left, for whatever reason I freaked out, like as if he was gonna like just continue going like
Yeah.
forever.
Take you to his
So
job or wherever he was going.
so in my freak out, I decide I'm gonna
Yeah.
jump off, and he must have been going, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but let's just say 20 miles per hour,
It might
which
have been going faster than that.
maybe, but let's 20, 25.
Okay.
And I jump off, and as soon as my feet hit the ground, I start tumbling. Boom, 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 boom. Get up. I don't even care. I start running back to you guys, but I'm all bloodied up, man. I'm all
Yeah.
up, man.
Yeah.
It's like that. That was just part of our childhood, And I don't even think I told mom and dad that. I think I just said I fell.
Yeah. That's how it was back then. You just took it. And our neighbor right there, he do ridiculous stuff like that, like just take us on the hood of his car, let us grab onto the back of his car while we're out, with the skateboard, and he would just take off, like just but I mean, I didn't mind it back then, and when I think about it, it's just a great memory. I'm not complaining about it at all. It is what it is, and that was our childhood. Like it's crazy.
Riding skateboards in the middle of the street, going down the steepest hills. you
Yeah.
taking me on the rollerblading
Tell that
mission.
story. What is your? How does that the rollerblading in your mind? How did it go down?
Well, the unfortunate part of this story was we were already in high school. You might have been in college.
Maybe.
No, I think you were because it was my junior year. It was my junior year in high school, and this might have been your freshman year of college. And for whatever reason,
So I moved out already. I'm not at the house.
oh yeah, so you're not even at the house, but you're into rollerblading or something, and
It was a fad
I
back then.
I ended up getting a pair so I can go rollerblading with you, but I'm not like a rollerblader.
Yeah.
I don't even think you are actually, but you're
Yeah.
better than me at this point in time because you had gone on a couple of runs or whatever.
Yeah.
So you decide like, hey Vince, we're gonna go rollerblading, and I'm gonna take you on this cool whatever trail or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And we start going up these hills in Silver Lake, and I remember like, damn, we're going kind of high. But this is what we did when we were kids, you know. But usually it was a skateboard or a bike, and we just keep going up and up and up. And we're on rollerblades, and this is like my first time on rollerblades. Really, I don't even know how to stop. I don't know how to use the brake, right? And we are on the steepest hills in Silver Lake, and it's like we get to the top, and you're like, all right, this is where we go down.
Yeah.
We didn't back down from nothing when we were kids. And I
Yeah.
didn't even, that wasn't even a thought in my head, like, oh, I'm not going to do this. Like, it was like, yeah, okay, this is where we go down. But looking back at it now, like, I should have just took my rollerblades off. Like, bro, are you trying to
Yeah.
kill me? Are you,
Yeah.
was this your plan? You're trying to kill me right now? And we start going down, and the very first hill, it was the first hill. We didn't even get far. It was
Yeah.
like, was just boom, heading
Yeah.
down the hill. You go first, I follow you. You make the turn, and I'm trying to make the turn, but I really don't know how to slow down or turn on rollerblades. And I just runs. I smash right into a parked car. Boom! And I
Yeah.
just slide under the parked car. Somehow, one of the metal pieces from underneath the car just takes a scoop of my leg out, like that much of my leg.
Yeah.
Needed stitches. I don't know how many stitches it was. It looked like a scoop of ice cream got taken out of my leg,
Yeah.
and I think my that took me out of football for about, I don't know. I want to say but 4 weeks, maybe
Yeah.
longer. That might have, I don't even, maybe it was 10th. No, it was my junior year, and so that was and you try to carry me home.
That's right. I
You're like, oh man, you come and you try to like help me up, and I'm like, oh, I can't even walk, like my leg is all busted up, and like you try to pick me up, and I'm like, it wasn't happening. It was a good effort though. I appreciate it.
yeah. Like and the way I mean a scoop of your leg was taken out. Like a good the ice cream scoop was taken out.
It was more like if you got
Yeah.
like a
Yes.
tablespoon of like honey, and yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
And the way you took it though, like the way you like it wasn't even like a huge you weren't screaming, you weren't like you weren't
Oh
crying all the way down. Like you just like you just took it. Like you just took it.
you
And
know
like
that.
you
Let me just say something, because when you say that the way you took it, it reminds me of kids these days, man. Like they can like barely fall, and it'll be like like some like
Mhm.
crazy like, oh, is the kid dead? Is he about
Yeah.
to like,
Yeah.
no? And then he gets up like, I'm good,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's different. It was different back then,
Yeah.
and I don't
I
know if
felt like
it was just, I think it was the way we were our childhood was, man, going through all kinds of craziness.
yeah, it was wild. Like the story about how we're walking back from the park, right? Walking back from park, and we were in the parking lot of Dreams. That's the name of that nightclub that was in our
Dreams.
area.
That's
Dreams.
right, dreams.
We're right there. We're walking back from the park. And there's a pile of snow. There's a pile of snow there from somebody came, Big Bear, dropped some snow right there, whatever, left it right there. And we're throwing little snowballs, and then we hear a fire truck, and we're like, hey, this fire truck won't stop if we hit it with a snowball. Like, if this fire truck drives by, we could throw snowballs at it and it'll just keep going because it's gonna go in an emergency, right? That's the thought as we see it going, right? Somebody says it real quick. I don't know who says it. So we all get the fireball, we all get the snowballs, and we're like cha 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 cha. We light it up. We light the fire truck up, and then we're laughing. We walk past Dreams. We're by 7-Eleven. We're just cracking up, and then we see firemen running at us, like running at us, and they're men, they're grown, big firemen running at us. We're just kids, and we take off running, and we have about one giant block to get to the house. It's like one huge block, like you said, it was like 300 yards or something like that.
Yeah,
A
250 at
huge,
least.
yeah, a huge block to get to our house, and we're weaving in and out of the neighborhood right there to try to get to our house to get safe. And I remember we run in, we were like, this is how our parents knew that we were up to something every time. It was like we go in there, can't breathe, and we're like, "Can Oscar and Fabian come in?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah, come in." And they come in or whatever, and we, escaped the firemen. But so I guess some of the kids got caught by the firemen, and from what I remember, they got pulled by their hair out of a trash can and like all kinds of craziness. But we escaped,
We
and
did
that
some
was
crazy,
crazy.
man.
Yeah,
And that was probably throwing a snowball at the firefighters was probably one of the more like tame things that we did. We had, remember Jimmy?
yeah,
Jimmy was notorious for, hey guys, watch this. And he would have a rock in his hand already. We didn't even know it. And he would
yeah.
just have a rock in his hand and he would just chuck the rock at a car, boom, hit a car. The car would swerve, tires screeching, and we would just take off running, man. And sometimes they would be chasing us and sometimes they wouldn't. But it was
That
just like,
that's that's what it was.
yeah, it was insane.
I,
Insane.
I I remember when we had that giant tire. I don't know if you remember
Oh my
this.
gosh.
We had that giant tire. It was like, I don't know, like a huge tire. I don't know. It was like I don't know. It was a big tire, and we were rolling it down that little
Semi
area
truck,
from,
like a semi truck tire.
yes, from the alley to like the main boulevard right there, right? So we're rolling it down from the alley to the main boulevard, and we were stopping it, whatever. And then one time we rolled through it, and like somebody jumped over it, and then like somebody moved out of the way, like, oh, I can't stop it, and it just kept rolling, and it hit a car, and the car swerved. And again, we're laughing like it's the funniest thing in the world. And we take off into the alley, walking back this way, and the car catches us by our house right there at the corner, and starts cursing us out. And it's like, you get that effing, and they curse us out, and we're like, oh, we're sorry. We had to go get the tire out of the street or something like that. Happen all the time. This crazy, crazy things that happen all the time.
What about when we were shooting BB guns? Well, one we were shooting BB guns from Oscar's house.
Yeah,
Then when we were shooting BB guns from Josh's house also.
Josh's house. Yeah,
Oscar's house, we thought we were gonna get away with it and didn't.
yeah.
And I don't know why we were shooting at a lady with a stroller. I don't. Do you remember that?
I don't know what we were thinking. Like, I don't know what we were thinking, and I don't know. I think we were just shooting at whoever passed by. I don't know if we were really
No,
thinking.
it wasn't. No, yeah, it wasn't like that was her. That was our intended target. Like, oh,
Yeah,
there she is,
yeah. It
lady
was
with
just
the
whoever was
stroller.
passed by. I think it was just like somebody passed, and then we realized, oh, dang, that was somebody with a baby. But
Yeah, that was crazy.
yeah, and the whole Josh situation. Do you remember that the BB guns at Josh's house?
Yeah,
So my memory is this, and you correct me if I'm wrong. We're over there. You're with us, right? Josh's house shooting BB guns, and there is again something. We're shooting toward the park. We're shooting toward the park
oh,
right
you
there.
know what we're shooting at?
What?
Do you know what
Now
we're
it's either a person or a birds. That's my memory.
No, so there was before Silver Lake Park redid the park, there was like a lawn
Yeah.
and there was people sitting in lawn chairs facing the opposite way. So their backs were to us. And I think Josh was the first one and he ends up shooting the dude in the lawn chair like on his backside, like on his behind. and he
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, and he gets up and he's like if something stung him. So that's what we were shooting at.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the lady, who is Josh's neighbor, opens the door and sees three people with BB guns right by her porch, pointed toward the
Rifles.
with rifles pointed to the park, and she starts screaming. Right? Is
Yes.
that yeah?
Yes.
And then we go back into Josh's house, and we think the coast is clear. She calls the cops, and the SWAT team comes.
Helicopters,
Helicopters, everything, they all come.
like 8 to 10 cop cars.
Yeah,
It was crazy.
yeah,
But by
yeah,
then we had already escaped.
yeah, yeah,
We were watching from the opposite end of the
yeah.
street, like
We
way opposite. I think Josh had to stay back because it was
He
his
did
house,
because that's his house. Yeah,
and the
yeah,
rest
and
of
we're
us got
like, this crazy stuff, crazy stuff, man. I remember, even walking down the street right there, and cars pulling up and asking us where we're from, opening the door with guns drawn.
yeah,
Like, where are you from? And we're like, we don't bang. We're like, we don't bang. And but they pull guns out on us like that. Like crazy stuff like that. Playing football at the park, and then drive-bys happen because it's what is it, crew versus crew, right? And so
yeah,
we go in like the ringers or something like that. We go help out a team or something, and there's drive-bys happening at the park while we're playing football. And being young, you don't know. You think you're invincible. I remember laying on the floor like, oh, this is crazy.
mhm,
But somebody could have died that day. You
yeah,
know that
yeah.
that's it's crazy.
I remember sitting on the porch. We were by Walter's. Well, Oscar and Fabian lived downstairs, and Walter lived upstairs with Ingrid and Tracy and all
Yeah,
those kids. And we were sitting on. Do you remember the stairs where we hung Ryan from?
upside down. Yeah,
Yeah. We were sitting on those stairs, and my bike was at the bottom of the stairs. And I want to say at least 6 to 10 gang members were walking together towards the park, and I knew one of them. I think we knew one of them,
hmm
Cisco.
Francisco.
Yeah, Cisco, and they walked by, and we just kind of just stood there, like, okay, like this is what happens. Let's just just
Mind your
watch
business.
your
Yeah,
business. They're walking by.
mind your business.
They pick up my bike, and it was a
Yeah,
brand new bike,
yeah,
and they ride off. And I'm like, oh, come on, Cisco, that's my bike. And Cisco's like, oh, don't worry, Vince, you'll get it back. They're just messing around. And that was the last time I saw that bike. I
yeah,
never saw that bike again.
yeah. And
And
there
there
was
was
nothing we
nothing,
could do.
yeah, there was nothing
There
we
was
could
nothing we could do. We just that's just a loss right there. We had to take that loss right there.
do. Yeah,
You
take
know.
that out. Take that out. Yeah, that was
That's
part of our, part of the neighborhood, you know.
Yeah. And how like how do you think that our parents influenced us? How did their influence affect us growing up? Let's take mom.
Well, and I was gonna say too right now, like fortunately for us, we didn't, because a lot of our friends, if not
Almost every one of them.
most, if not all our friends, like
So could we say that there was probably like somewhere between 25 to 30 kids that might have lived at that on our area right there, about something like that? About 25 to 30 kids live in that area. And you're saying that we were probably the only ones with a dad or two parents. Let's just say two parents, because Oscar had his dad, but his mom wasn't necessarily always there or something. I don't know how it worked.
yeah, the mom didn't live there.
Yeah,
And I wasn't even gonna go there yet. I was gonna say just that most, if not all of our friends joined some type of gang,
yeah,
whether it had been like a tagging crew that actually did some shooting, or like a lower level gang, or an actual like big time gang. But most, if not all, our friends joined the gang. So
yeah,
we were fortunate enough to have, I think, yes, our parents, but more so our dad,
Yeah.
because I think that's what stopped us from joining like our
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna say, like, our dad was diagnosed with he was schizophrenic,
Yeah,
right? He was schizophrenic, and we knew that. We knew that he was a little, his screws were a little loose, right? And so, in the back of my mind, if there was anybody that I really feared, it was dad. I felt like, you know what, if I screwed up, this man will kill me,
what was his
and I,
favorite?
I'm gonna rip your head off. I'm gonna rip your head off. I'm gonna put you through the wall.
Well, I'm gonna rip your head off and throw it through the wall.
Yeah, yeah. That
So
was it,
that's a visual.
right? So you're a kid, and this is what he tells you: I'm gonna rip your head off and throw it through the wall. And he's diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Yeah,
So you take that threat serious.
yeah,
That's something you don't take lightly. And like me growing up, right? Like I'm always trying to manipulate a situation. I'm always trying to play a game, manipulate a situation, control a situation. I'm trying to control mom. I'm trying to control you. I'm trying to control all the situations I'm in. But I could never control dad. I could never figure, like, he was like such a wild card to me, and I could never figure him out. And even if I tried, he would do something totally like different, and it would screw me up. And all of the data that I had on dad didn't even matter. It didn't even count. It was like, oh damn. It's like the way I see it was like if you blow up a balloon, right? Like you blow up a balloon and then you just let it go and it goes all over the place. You have no idea where it's gonna go. It's just gonna be like that's how I felt sometimes dad's reaction to things were. Like I didn't know like how it was gonna go down. I didn't know. Sometimes he was graceful and it's like, oh, and sometimes he wasn't. It was hard.
yeah,
It was harsh. I was like, damn. And because I didn't know what he was going to do, that kept me in line. And the fact that he was like 6'1", a big man, he was a big man and he was crazy. Uh, that kept me in line. And I'm not complaining about it. It it helped me stay in line. It helped us not to join a gang,
yeah. And I
right?
always remember using or saying, if my dad caught me, he'd kill me. And all of our friends, because they knew our dad, and they would all like kind of give us like the nod, like, yeah, their dad would kill him. Like, whether they were passing like passing the joint around or whatever it was, or passing the 40 around. And, I would be like, nah, I can't. My dad would kill me.
Yeah.
And everybody was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's acceptable. That was acceptable.
Yeah, that excuse because they knew who dad was and they didn't even want to mess with him. Nobody wanted to mess with him. Like nobody did. And that
Yeah.
was
I
so
remember I remember using that later though. Like I remember believing that when I was younger, and then I remember using it because I didn't necessarily at one point want to smoke weed or drink or whatnot. And I remember
yeah.
using that as, nah, my dad will kill me. And I could always go back to that, whether it was true or not at that point. Like I didn't know. Maybe he would, because dad was crazy.
Yeah.
But I remember using that, to my benefit at that point in time. Like, nah, my dad will kill me, and that I could use that as like as my ticket out. You know,
I remember like, I would always try to figure out dad. How do I figure out dad? How do I figure him out? And I always, he smoked a lot of weed, right? Dad smoked a lot of weed and uh I remember he would hide his joint in one of the cupboards in inside the kitchen so that he could just take it and go outside on a little porch out right there, right? So he'd hide one of his joints in there. And I was like, I went in there one time and I was looking for food. I opened the cupboard. I was like, this guy hiding his joint in here, man. Like he thinks that nobody knows or whatever. Come on. So whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna move his joint. I'm gonna move it and put it in a different place. Again, let me play a game.
crazy,
I know. Let me play a
crazy,
game on dad. Let me play a game on dad and let me mess with his mind. Let me
crazy.
mess with a man who's diagnosed as schizophrenic. Let me mess with his mind. Again, this is me pushing boundaries. This is me like kissing death. Like like getting right there,
Death
you
wish.
know, right? So I take that joint and I push it, I put it higher and I put it somewhere else. And I close it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, he's gonna have to admit it. He's gonna have to say, "Hey, did you?" He's gonna have to say that he smoked because he never would say it. He never would say, "Oh, I smoke." He never would say it. I wanted him to say it. I needed him to verbally tell me, "Did you see my joint?" So I move it. I go back and I'm sitting down or whatever, and I know it's coming. I know it's coming sometime today. He's gonna look for it, and he goes to the cupboard, and I'm sitting in the living room, and he comes back out, and he's like, "Hey, were you looking for something inside the cupboard?" I was like, "No, like what? Like food? Like food? Yeah, I ate something, but like no." He's like, "You didn't move anything, or like you didn't like touch anything, or?" I was like, "No, like I just you saw I got food, like." And that's how it ended, right? Later on in life, when I think about that again, that was like, screwing with death, like playing chicken with death. That's 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 what I was doing.
And for what reason?
Exactly. Exactly. For what reason? Right? Why was I wired different? Why was I wired that way where like let me just see how far I could go. Let me test the limits. Let me just and like I said, if dad wasn't around, who knows where I'd be or what I would be doing
Yeah.
or what? Because no after that, nobody's stopping me. Nobody's gonna stop me.
Well, like the interesting part is that even with dad around, you still test the limits
Yeah.
way further than I ever did.
Yeah.
So, like you said, imagine dad not being around.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't be where you're at today. 100%. Like,
No way. And
mm-mm.
mom would always say stuff like the parents that you get are for a reason. Like um she raised us religiously, with God, and my dad was like the iron fist or whatever.
Mm-mm.
And I believe that. I believe that that it worked out for us. That idea worked out for us, and um mom was like she would take us to church. She did her very best. I felt like she would take us to church. She would take us to Sunday school. She would try to read the Bible with us. She would try to teach us, good morals, good character, like biblical stories, and that I think that because I still think about I still think about God and those stories, and like that seed that she put inside me right there. It still flourishes. It's still there,
Yeah,
So I think it was a good combination of both.
I agree. And I'm wondering, like, how different from our childhood and the way we were raised, or is there a difference the way you raised your kids?
Hmm.
Like, how far off
Yeah.
from dad are you?
So I feel like we're always a refined version, right? So like if you take our parents, right? I feel like okay, our grandparents, I felt like they did their very best with their kids, which is our parents, right? So then our parents tried to do their very, very best, however they thought was their very best with us. And it was different from the way they were raised. And I think that we do that. We try to do our very best with our kids, right? And I took whatever was good from both parents, and I took that, and I was like, all right, let me keep that. And I took out things that I felt like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Like a big thing for me was yelling. I hated the fact that dad would yell. He would
Mm,
yell and scream at you, and I hated that. I hated it with like I was so logic. Like I was all about logic, and I was like, you could have just told me, like, don't do that. Like you didn't have to scream to the top of your lungs, don't do it. Like you didn't have to do that. Like you could just told me, hey, don't like stop. But you didn't do it that way. So it's I didn't. I hated screaming. I hated yelling. I hated it. And so when I was a father, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna yell. It's gonna be very rare that I yell. And if I yell, it's because of out of safety. Like I'm trying to save somebody's life. Hey, get out the way, move, something. But I'm just not gonna yell at you because you spilt your soda on the floor. I'm not gonna do that.
damn it, Johnny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How
How
old are
about
you?
you? Yeah. 17.
But
Oh,
the placement of the soda was always like looking back at it like that, you placed it right on my foot.
Yeah, it was right. It was right there on the floor where people walk.
I kicked it because it was on the floor. It's not like it
Yeah,
was. But sometimes we did spill it while it was on the coffee table. But there was
yeah,
that time, where he was sitting on the couch and he would have it right by his foot.
yeah.
Like,
And you'd be sitting on the couch or the chair next to him, and you get up, and then clink, you just
yeah.
knock it over.
So
What about like growing up, right? Like, were we ever taught how to control our emotions?
I think I got a little bit more of that than you
Yeah,
because I didn't know what to do sometimes when you would like, normal
act
bully.
stupid. Yeah,
No,
act stupid.
normal stuff that older brothers would do, right, with their younger brothers, and I remember like one time specifically, I think my girlfriend at the time was like Nuria or something, and I remember you calling her like a whale, and I remember being upset about that. I remember going to mom because I didn't know what to do. Like, hey, John called my girlfriend a whale, and I remember her telling me like, hey, well, is she a whale? And I was like, no, and yeah, at least not to me, and my, I didn't think she was.
Yeah, yeah,
And then mom was like, well, is she as big as a whale? And I was like, no. And then she said, well then, don't worry about it. And then she says something like, and the next time he says something mean or something that hurts, say something nice to him. And I remember trying that, and it kind of worked. So not that she told me anything about controlling my emotions or like this wasn't like this big old lesson on like how to like control your feelings, but it did help a little bit. Like,
yeah,
oh, okay, like I don't have to react to what my brother says to me. I can
yeah.
I can react differently. And that was like the one lesson I remember, like, to this day.
Clearly,
It was a big
clearly.
lesson for me. Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, like he can say whatever he wants.
yeah,
Doesn't have to impact me the way he thinks it should.
yeah.
You know?
And I could imagine that when you told me, like, oh, you told me something nice, it probably pissed me off
Yeah,
so bad. It
yeah,
probably, and I was trying to get you even harder, and you said something probably nice back, and I was even so more frustrated. I was like, I'm losing control. How am I losing control? How is this guy winning?
yeah, yeah. But we
Uh,
weren't really taught a lot necessarily. I feel, it was more through like just watch me. Like my dad was a man of very few words.
yeah,
There wasn't a lot of like, hey son, like, I have a lesson I want to teach you, or listen to this. You'd be just to get a word out of dad was, I mean, how he was.
yeah,
Very quiet,
yeah.
very quiet, very serious. And mom was working two jobs, so
Yep.
yeah. So we weren't taught a lot of lessons, I would say. Not
I was
direct.
no. We were outside. Like, we were those kids that were outside from the morning till it got dark every day, and
Yeah.
we'd be just out there playing and on the streets, and getting into stuff, and that's what we were. And dad was he would get angry quickly, and I think that affected us, because I think that when at least when I was growing up, I got angry quickly. Like, for me, like you were saying earlier in the podcast about how I was just like, oh, I'll just go ahead and punch this guy or whatever. I would just, from 0 to 100, angry. And I feel like that affected my marriage. That affected, like, early on, like, because I was so angry, like, just quick to, like, and I didn't know how to control my emotions. And I wasn't even empathetic at all. Like, I didn't care about anything, like anybody. Like, I was not empathetic. Like, the man that I am today is not the man that I was growing up with you, 17, 18 years old, when I moved out the house at 18, right? I'm not that man. And, I think that it's crazy. In one of my videos I posted, somebody talked about, like, I had mentioned about how, like, the mind of a still a difficult behavior, where, and somebody in the comments said, like, you think it has to do with empathy or something like that. And I thought about it. I was like, damn, I was really not empathetic at all until I had kids.
Mm.
Because of my kids, I was like, damn, I gotta. These are my kids. I care for these kids, and that melted my heart. That melted my heart. Now, that's not to say that if somebody actually taught me empathy growing up, like somebody sat down and said, "Hey, like this is what empathy means. This is how you demonstrate empathy, and you should be empathetic," and taught me some lessons on that. That might have helped as well too. But like you said, we were just kind of you just grow up. You grew up. You naturally, I felt, were empathetic. I felt like that came to you growing up so easy. Like you were a
Yeah.
whole different guy.
Mm. Yeah, I agree, and I don't know if that necessarily benefited me or it was a detriment, but yeah, I do agree. And I know like I don't know, everything has pros and cons. I feel like I was very forgiving
Yeah,
growing up. I still am. I'm just a that type of person. Um, I don't know. Like who's to say one way is better than the other?
yeah,
Sometimes I feel like I wish I was a little bit more cold hearted. I think that would benefit me a little bit. Have a little bit of that. Like that what you have. Or that what you had. Like the killer instinct. Like I'm just gonna go in and win right now. I want to win right now. I was playing basketball with somebody recently, and he reminded me of you. I came into the, let's just call it the fight. I came into the fight like, all right, I'm gonna like throw a couple of jabs and like feel the guy out. And this guy came in throwing a right hook, uppercut, straight right, trying to knock me out.
yeah,
And this was recently, and I use that as an analogy. But he came in like boxing out hard, getting the rebound hard, like driving to the basket hard. Where in my mind I was like, oh, like, oh, we're just having fun, but well, he was trying to win.
yeah,
And that benefits, if that's the game, if we're competing in it, or the name of the game is winning, the guy who comes out and punches first is going to win. Probably most likely is going to win. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate both sides. I appreciate the guy who comes in a little, all right, let's see what's going on, let's fill it out. And I also appreciate the guy who comes in and just tries to knock you out.
yeah. Me
He
too.
woke me up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I feel like you need both things, and I use that in the classroom, right, where you could be the most empathetic, loving, caring person, empathetic, most loving, caring person, but the minute that student crosses the line, you're playing a whole different game now. You're like, oh, you threw a right hook. Oh, I'm not gonna just stay here and smile at you and be empathetic. You're playing a whole different game. You're trying to win. You're trying to knock me out.
Right.
So I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna have to be wise here. I can't let my guard down because you'll take everything if I let my guard down. So I
Yeah.
gotta be both wise and I gotta be soft. So you gotta be both. What is it? Be as gentle as a dove or and wise as a serpent. That kind of
Mhm.
deal. You
Yeah.
know.
What
So
was
yeah. So
Muhammad Ali's
float
slogan?
like a butterfly,
Slogan for
sting like a bee.
butterfly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
get growing up. I don't know how I don't know how I ended up being an educator, right? So here I am at 18. I move out the house. I get married at 18. I have a family. I have kids at 18. I move out, and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do now? Like, I gotta win again. This is the winner, like the winning instinct in me. Like, I can't lose. Like, okay, I moved out. I have nothing. I have this old beat up car. I have a family support, and I got this one job. I think I was working at a school at the time, like as a playground assistant, making pennies. All right, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I gotta win. And so that gave me this ridiculous drive, like this ridiculous focus. Like it is impossible for me to lose. I cannot lose here. So I'm gonna have to. So I was just like, I had no, I'm at LACC. I have no guidance. I'm just taking classes. I'm just taking class. I'm here at this job. I don't. Nobody says, hey, here's the track. You take these classes to get this degree, and you move this. It's like, shh. Here's a. I need 12 units so I could get financial aid. That was it. I need 12 units so I could get financial aid because that helps my financial income and I could pay for some things. I don't look like a total bum making this penny, whatever I'm making at this school, working like I think I was working like maybe like 15 to 20 hours a week, with the family support. And I remember just being in my bedroom. I was always angry. Yeah, I'm surprised that like we survived. I was always angry. I'd go inside the house. I'm 20 years old. Go inside the house, angry as hell, angry at the world, angry at life. Don't say hi to anybody at the house. Go straight to my room, just pissed off. And I like that scripture though, where like I forget, was it Jacob wrestled God? Like he wrestled God for like ever, and God like pressed his hip, and then he had to walk with a limp for the rest of. I remember like wrestling with God in my bedroom, like, and cursing, like, why the f, why God did I get married? Why is this happening? Why can I not? Why am I always angry? Why is like, and it was just like this constant prayer of like, why is it like this, and how do I change, how do I make things better? And this was constant for like a good amount of time. And I'm in junior college, and barely figuring things out, and I wanted to be a social worker. And when I transferred to Cal State, I wanted to be a social worker. And I remember sitting in that, we worked at the same group home,
Yeah.
and yeah, I remember I was like, oh, I want to be a social worker. I'm at Cal State LA, and I'm sitting there, and we're there's like a group circle meeting, and where I'm sitting in the meeting, and one of the little boys just gets up and just punches the other boy right in the face, like bah. And then the social worker's like, "Oh, sit down, Billy. Just sit down." Like, and they just like totally brush it off like it's an everyday occurrence. And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want this job. I don't want to be this guy. This is not who I
Yeah.
want to be." Uh, and you know, I just you in my mind, I'm like, I can't lose. I got to figure this out. And I become one-on-one aide, right? And I work with Nick, and you work with Nick as well, the most ridiculous guy ever, right? The most ridiculous guy ever. That kid was ridiculous. But that's where I worked at that job, and they're paying me $20 an hour. And this was like, I think it might have been like, I don't know, 2000, something like
Yep.
that. It was year 2000.
Yep.
Back then, that job allowed me to move out of my mother-in-law's house and have my own apartment, because I was making $20 an hour now. And working with Nick, and nobody could work with Nick, nobody could figure him out, nobody knew how to deal with this guy. And I go in there, and I remember sitting with them, and he's saying like the N word to like all the basketball team, and he's like, you know and making inappropriate gestures toward his like private area and stuff like that. And like, I'm like, oh, what did I get myself into? Like, what is going on here? And this kid is off the hook.
Moaning.
Yeah, making moaning noises. I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? And I was able to control. I was able to figure him out. And it got to a point where I just had to, like, he was out in the yard and he would behave himself. He'd always look for me, like always look around. I'd whistle. I'd like, and he would like come, like, because he was too far off, or he too got out of control, and he was embarrassed if I got next to him. And so we had this cue of like, okay, well, if I whistle, that means that if you don't come closer to me, I'm gonna have to go over there, and then you're gonna embarrass because I'm gonna get next to you, and then you don't like that, so I'll stay away. So we had a system. And I'm 20 years old, right? I think I'm like 20, 21 years old working with this guy. And then working with Nick, I remember working with sitting in these classrooms, and these teachers who are not teaching. I'm in the classroom, and the guy's on his chair reading a newspaper, and all the kids are doing whatever they were doing, and all the kids in the classroom are brown and black, and I'm like, oh, this is what's being done to all my brown and black kids.
Mhm.
And I remember sitting there, and I remember going from period to period for that year, thinking like, damn, all these kids right here are not getting the right education. They're
Yeah.
just not. And I could do a way better job. I know I could do a way better job. And because of that job, and because of that reason, because I saw all those kids not getting educated, it inspired me to become a teacher. And I remember getting a newspaper, it was like the Sunday paper, sitting in the classroom saying, okay, right here, here's a job where, and I didn't have my credential, I just had my bachelor's degree. I was like, this job says I could get hired without a credential. And that's how I got hired to the Catholic school. I eventually got my credential, but it's crazy how things work. Like, here I am, have no idea, get married at 18. In my mind, I'm like, I gotta win. I know I like working with kids, and it kind of just takes me on this path,
You,
and I
you
get
know,
hired. That
like you literally paved the way for me though. Literally, like as you're telling the story of like you went to LACC, and then you helped me fill out my paperwork to go to LACC. I went to LACC, and on a side note, the fact that you and I got out of LACC and transferred is pretty
yeah,
awesome in
yeah.
and of itself. Like the fact that we were able to get our classes, and whether it took 2 or 3 years or whatever it was, and navigate that. Like you said, there was no counselor saying, "Hey, this is what you got to do. Here's take these classes, take those classes."
There was no parent help. No parent help. They had some sort of experience to be like, hey, this is what you have to do. No guidance.
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
Getting out of LECC, and then you're working at the group home, which you got me into the group home. Then I started working at the group home, and you end up working with Nick. Then you left, Nick, and got me into working with Nick. And it's just crazy how like you literally like every you went through the jungle, you got your little machete and carved away, and then here comes your little brother like, oh look, this, just go down that path, just go down, make a left over here, go over that little mountain right there. Okay, this
Yeah.
this little dinosaur or this tiger, whatever it is, this obstacle, like this is how you get around it. And you end up becoming a teacher, and long story short, I end up becoming a teacher.
Hmm.
And it's crazy because you're now out of the class. You're a principal, and it looks like next year I'll probably be the dean of my school.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be calling you a lot about and asking questions about, because I know you've been the dean.
Yeah. How do you feel about leaving the classroom? How do you feel about leaving the classroom, becoming a dean? How does that, how do you feel
the
about that?
the reason why I even put my name in the hat for dean is because I feel like I will have a much greater impact as dean than I will as a teacher. Right now I have the students that I see, you know whatever, it's 6 classes, each class, whatever, however many kids in each class, multiply that by 6. And if I'm dean, just I feel like my impact would just be on the entire school. So that's why I put my name in the hat. I feel like
Yeah.
I'll be able to impact more kids,
Yeah.
a bigger impact.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's that.
excited.
It's good. It's a dean is an important job. I think that I think that the impact you have will be on all of the students with difficult behavior,
Oh,
right? So you
100%. That's all I'm.
yeah, all the students with difficult behavior are going to go through your way, right? And um, if you could be able to manage those guys, if you could figure out how to control those guys, manage them to where they feel safe, they feel loved, they feel comfortable, they feel welcome at school, even though they might make mistakes, right? Um, then you're gonna win as a dean. You're gonna win as a dean. Um, and people are, like I said, I think I told you this, but people are gonna pressure you to be like, hey, they need to be punished. Hey, all this punitive stuff, right? Suspend this kid, kick this kid out of school, right? They're gonna tell you these things. You're gonna feel the pressure. You're definitely gonna feel the pressure.
And it's funny. I'm gonna go back to our childhood for a second, talking about pressure, right?
Yeah.
I remember it was New Year's Eve, and I'm on my way to church. I think I'm 17 or maybe 16. I think I might be 16 at this time.
16. I'm probably like 17 or 18 or something
And
like
you're
that.
17 or 18, and we end up meeting. I don't know if we walked the same way together or if we met.
We just met somehow.
So I'm like a block away from the church, and it's you, Josh, and Jamal, and you guys are about to go drinking in Hollywood or something.
Party. We're gonna go party in Hollywood.
About to go
Yeah.
party. And when you said pressure, that story immediately popped up into my head. Like, and you guys were like, "Come on, Vince, let's go." I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna go to church." And you're like, "Come on, let's just go. Let's go to whatever. We're gonna go party in Hollywood." And I'm like, "Nah, you know what? I'm just gonna go to church." And you
Yeah.
guys end up going off onto the bus. I think you took the RTD, and you guys went to Hollywood, and I made a left, and went to church, and
Yeah.
so I laugh when you said pressure because it's it's very rare when I succumb to any type of pressure. If I'm gonna do it,
That's
I'm gonna
good.
do it 'cause I wanted to do it. Like,
Yeah, that's good. And that's all you have to be, and if you're able to like talk to all those kids and then help those teachers that need the most help. That's another thing. How do you tell a teacher this is always hard. I'm just going to be honest. Like if you how do you tell a teacher who doesn't have good classroom management, hey, you're struggling in this area and this is how I think might help. This will help you if you do these things. That's hard to do because telling a teacher something like that, I don't know. I feel like, and I was a teacher and I didn't like to be told like what to do. You feel like you think you know everything and like I got this under control, and I don't know, it's just hard. It's a hard thing to navigate through.
I
You're gonna see.
I wonder, because I know my weaknesses as a teacher, and I know my strengths, I just wonder, like, is it more than just telling them, you know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what you need to do. Like, let's just say, for instance, like, I think my weakness going into like the first, like, I think 8 years of my career, I taught English, and then the last like 6 years, I've been teaching math.
Yeah,
And so going in year one, like, you could have told me anything. My weakness was curriculum because I never taught math before. So it didn't matter what my coach teacher told me or my mentor teacher or whatever. Like, this is year one and I've never taught math. So you could tell me whatever it is you want to tell me, I'm gonna struggle.
yeah,
And so looking at it, the flip side to that coin, like social emotional building relationships and dealing with difficult students, maybe this teacher is a master at curriculum and knows the curriculum from left, front to back, and like, not a problem. But when you tell a teacher, like, hey, you need to meet the student where he is or she is, and you need to understand where this kid's coming from, and like, whatever, the kid, their parents work 3 jobs and he takes care of the younger brother, and whatever the drama is going on at the house,
yeah,
if that teacher really doesn't have the at this point in time the capacity, or hasn't learned how to, like you said earlier, how to control, how to not react to certain things. The kid's just trying to get a reaction out of you, like, and you're trying to tell the teacher, hey, don't react, like, this is what you got to do. Maybe just telling that teacher isn't enough because they're year one of, like, really trying to understand how do I deal with
yeah,
difficult students, like, it's a lot. I don't even, I don't have the answer. I don't know what it is, but I know it's hard for a lot of teachers to figure out, like, how do I figure out this kid? How do I deal with this kid?
yeah,
Yeah. And it's a process. Like, it was a process with me with year one with math. Now I'm like year five, year six, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting it now.
yeah.
It's 5 years later, you know.
Yeah, it is a process, and even me, this is my third year as a assistant principal, and you know, I, I don't know if I'm that effective. I know like when it comes to working with the teachers, I don't know how effective I am. Um, I know like there's strengths that I have, and that's classroom management and working with students with difficult behavior. I'm pretty darn good at that, right? But there's stuff that I know I'm weak at, and it's just about getting better. Like in my mind, I can't lose, and I'm gonna figure it out, and that's just how it's gonna go.
And I think that's the mentality that teachers have to have is, I remember when I was doing a SDC, and a kid would do something, and
That's special day class, correct? Just for the people who are
yeah,
listening, special day
yeah,
class.
special day class, and I remember going home thinking about it, like, okay, I was cool as a cucumber, I didn't let the kid, maybe in my mind I was getting frustrated, or like I was, but I was like calm or whatever. And I remember thinking about it at home, like, okay, like you say, I'm not gonna lose, so what are some of the things I can come back with tomorrow that will put me in a situation where, okay, Mr. Vergara is in control of this classroom. He's not flipping out. He's not going all crazy. He still
Yeah,
seems, I don't know how that dude's cool as a cucumber, but he still seems calm.
Yeah.
And I would just come up with a thousand ideas, like, okay, this is how I'm going to start the class tomorrow. And it's that mentality. And I think, if we, more teachers had that mentality, like, I'm not going to lose. Like, let's come at it at a different angle. Let's come at it a different perspective. I think
Yeah.
that will help.
Yeah.
You
That's
know.
that sounds right on. That sounds perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I know we got over a little bit an hour. It's about an hour and 10 right now. But I just want to say, I felt like our childhood, growing up, it impacted the way that we are as educators.
Yeah.
I feel like that, all of that stuff, all of that wildness, all of that craziness that we went through, all the things that we talked about helps us better understand the student with difficult behavior because we were in those type of shoes. We experienced some things that, you know, that helped us grow as people. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I have a question for you before we get out of here. I remember, let's say, I don't know, it was like my eighth year in or something. Um, by the way, I've been shaving my head since ninth grade,
Yeah.
right? Football, ninth grade. I started shaving my head because the helmet, um, the grease that I would wear was called Tres Flores. It would like drip into my face, and I was already, a teenager with pimples. So then that would give me more
Uh,
pimples. I started shaving my head.
yeah.
I remember like year 7 or 8. This kid was like, "Hey, Mister," and I don't think the kid was trying to be mean, but the kid was like, "Your head's shiny," and my initial reaction was, I said this. I go, "Your face is shiny," and the girl looks at me and she goes, "You're being mean," and I go, "Aren't you being mean too?" And she was like, "But you're an adult," and I go, "I know, and I'm teaching you a lesson." I said, just because my head's shiny doesn't mean you need to say it. I go, "There's a lot of things I could say about you." And she
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, but I'm being honest." And I go, "There's a lot of things I could say about you that I'd be being honest too, but it would be mean if I said it." And so I guess my question to you is, I know that was some time ago, but we can't do that as teachers, can we? We shouldn't be saying stuff like that, right?
Oh man, it depends. I think it depends on the age. I think it depends on
This
the
was
age.
middle school. This was middle school. It was like seventh grade, I think it was.
I feel like if you allow a student to just like bag on you, they're gonna continue to bag on you. And so
Yeah,
somehow it has to stop. Right? Now there's different ways that you can make it stop. Like, hey, don't talk to me that way. Don't I'm your teacher, and you pull the whole respect card, I'm your teacher, blah, blah, blah. You could do that. Or if you're in high school, right? If you're in high school, you just throw it right back at them, like, whoa, like my head's shining, your teeth are big.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's
Got
kind of
big teeth. Like what? Like what? We all have faults, I guess, right? Right? Like
we're all imperfect.
yeah, like we're all both in. Like I just feel like if you just allowed them to say some crazy stuff like that to you, they would continue to say crazy stuff. They just continue, and so like bullies, right? And so like in high school, like you just have to give it right back. In middle
Yeah,
school, it depends on the situation. It depends on the situation, and I feel like, I mean, you don't have to be rude about it. You can say something right back, like I think you would have to defend yourself as well in middle school, right? Because I
I'm
taught middle school too, and I know that if they because they talked about my head too, because I started shaving my head in I think I was like in my 20s or whatever. I was in middle school. I don't know. I'd have a little fade or whatever, and then I just like, screw it. I'm just gonna shave it, right? Um, and they would say stuff about my head, and at first it would bother me and it would make me upset. But then I would just like, I was like, you know what? There's no need to get upset. I just, I would say something about, well, your ears are pretty big too, right? Like, like, come on, what are we doing here? Like, what is it?
yeah.
Um, so I think it just depends, and
I remember telling her afterwards. I was like, "Your face isn't shiny," and
yeah,
she's like, "I know." I go, "I know," but I was just trying to teach you a lesson. And then she just
yeah.
like rolled her eyes. I don't know if she got it or not, but I thought that was
But
to
that's
me.
a good point. That's a good point though. Like because the kids will take advantage of you if you don't defend yourself. The kids will take advantage of you, and you
Yeah,
could be the kindest.
I don't know if you could get away with that these days though. You know what I mean? Like it's different nowadays.
Yeah,
This was some time ago already, but now like I don't know, like I just don't know. I just wanted to ask you like what do you think about that?
you just gotta be really careful of what you say and what you do.
I know.
Extremely careful. And you know what? When you become a dean, you're gonna have to be even more careful.
Even
And
more
if you
careful.
even
Yeah.
and the further you move up, the more careful you have to be. And the
Yeah.
dean is a lonely position. I don't know, like for me, it was a lonely position. Like the teachers know you, so it's different. But I went in as a dean, like nobody knew me, so it's a lonely position. You're not really an admin, but you're not really a teacher either, and you report to admin. So
Hmm.
that puts you in the middle.
Interesting.
So yeah, and you don't get invited as much. They don't really include you as much. Like you'll see.
I don't care about invites.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hey, well, thanks for having me, man. This was
Uh,
fun.
no problem, man.